writing the screen.
Yeah. Should I start?
Yes, is it counting?
Yeah. 30 seconds.
Give me So today we are going to discuss how come this guy sit down and give me think now, let's it's not clear.
It's clear, and I was on now.
No, don't. It's me.
And that's
So today
because
we are going to compare Descartes' methodic doubt, right? And Husserl's phenomenological method. I introduced this in the previous class. Phenomenology. So we compare Descartes' methodic doubts and what Husserl's method. So already in our previous class we tried to introduce Husserl meant. And I told you the circumstance that led to his development of the new method of philosophy, right? Yes. What was that? What was the issue in his time that made him to chart a new path of course for philosophy? What was the issue?
Because philosophers was more interested towards the science and not about matter, what they can see.
They were more interested in science. What's in science?
He felt that philosophy deviated from the
Yeah.
So the proper way to correct it.
So they deviated from the track in the sense that they were what? Precisely. They were using what? Scientific method. Yes, the method of science. And that departure from the purpose of philosophy happened when? In history of human civilization. In what epoch or era? After the medieval, the Renaissance era, right? With the rise of humanism and breakthroughs in science. So Husserl decided to chart a new method in philosophy. a new method, a new path for philosophy, right? Or in fact, to take philosophy back to its original purpose, its original concern, which is the study of what? Reality from a universal perspective, right? Now, Husserl acknowledged that in the strict sense of it, he was not the first to attempt the method he proposed, which he called epoche. Not the first. Before him, a rationalist called from Descartes used the method called epoche without even knowing. Remember, epoche means what? Bracketing, right?
Yes.
And it means bracketing. And this bracketing means what? Suspension of what? Judgment. Right? So when Descartes was doing what he called the methodic doubt, it was part of suspension of judgment. Remember, Descartes was one of the philosophers that allowed himself to be unduly influenced by science. Because Descartes built his philosophy around scientific method. Because in the beginning, he was in search of certain and precise knowledge. Certain and precise knowledge. And he thought that the only means he can use to achieve that was what? Using the method of science. Right? So, in order to arrive at this certain and precise knowledge, he decided to do what? To doubt everything that is in existence. So that he can lay the foundation of human knowledge on a foundation that cannot be disputed. So he wanted to do what? To doubt everything. And build the foundation of epistemology on a platform that cannot be shaken. Right? Now, when Descartes was trying to doubt everything, he discovered that what? He himself is a doubting being. That as he was trying to doubt everything, He cannot doubt himself. He is a being that was actually doubting. So from trying to doubt everything, he discovered that he is an active being in doubt. And from there, he said what? I think, therefore I am. Now, at that point when he was trying to doubt everything, what he was actually, the method he was actually using in that doubt is what? Because he wanted to do what? To bracket his consciousness on the existence of everything, so that he can begin human understanding afresh, which is not possible. So, in essence, one similarity you can take from here is that what? In essence, both Descartes and Husserl emphasize the importance of the ego. Ego is the I, right? I. Both of them emphasize the importance of the ego. The I. The importance of consciousness. The knowledge. The importance of consciousness. The importance of the ego. Right? The ego was their takeoff point. Right?
Yes, sir.
Are you following me?
Yes, sir.
But the difference in this point is that what? While for Husserl, the ego is the horizon, the metrics, the stage of existence. It is within the ego that everything that exists takes place. The ego is the context, it is the resident. All that is takes place within the ego, because the ego is the first person perspective. Right? But for Descartes, the ego is what? Is the first principle of existence. I don't want to distract you. So, the ego is the first principle of existence. Just forget about it, just concentrate. Right? Don't get distracted. The ego is the first principle of existence, because it was from thinking that the ego did what? He realized that what? He's a conscious being. So the ego is the first principle of existence from which it deduced or induced other existences. Because look at what happened. When Descartes discovered that he's a thinking being, he made his ego the first thing that exists. And from the ego, he now deduced other existences. So it's not as if existence is taking place with the ego. The ego was deduced from the thinking. Do you get my point? But for Husserl, everything that is happens within the ego, because the ego is the life world. I don't get my point. So it is not like as if it is the first principle of existence. No. Existence happens within the ego. Are you following? So both of them has emphasized the importance of the ego as the source, as the product, as the environment of consciousness. Right? As the principle of consciousness. In fact, the principle that helps us to perceive reality. But Husserl treats the ego as Descartes treats the ego as. Whereas for Husserl, consciousness itself takes place within the ego. I'm trying to make this thing as simple as possible. Now, another point we have to make is that what? Descartes tried using a logical method. He tried to make his method. He used the method of deduction, according to some text, on use induction. So he tried to move from stage to stage, in his method of knowledge, his method of knowing. So he used a logical method to arrive at certain knowledge. But Husserl was not really concerned with anything with the logicality of his claims. He used an empirical method. Are you following me? So he used an empirical method. So he was not even concerned about certain knowledge. He wasn't. He just wanted to find a way that can help us to know things as they what? As they are. Am I communicating? Yes. The second point I'm trying to make is that what? Descartes used the method of logic and induction. Because you can see that from the realization of, from thinking, he realized that it was existing. He proved the existence of his ego. From the existence of his ego, he proved the existence of the environment, because the ego lives within an environment. And from the existence of the environment and the ego, he said he's not the one that created the environment. Neither is he the one that created his ability to think. Therefore, there must be a being outside himself and the environment that created everything. So we deduce the existence of what? Of God. So you can see that it is based on what? Logic. From this to this to this. So the ego was the first principle of existence. And he used logic. But Husserl was not invested in logicality of his thought. He's just invested in what? Helping us to know things as they are. As things do what? Manifest themselves to what? To consciousness. So he was not emphasizing deduction or induction or logic. Right? So the point we're trying to make here is that what? That for Husserl, the aim is not necessarily certainty of knowledge or precision of knowledge. The aim was to do what? To know reality as it is manifested to what? To consciousness. But for Descartes, the home is the aim is to create a certain foundation for knowledge that is precise and indisputable. Am I correct? Yes, sir. Are you sure? Yes, sir. Now, remember we said that Descartes began from thinking. And when he talked about that, it's thinking. It was as if the thinking was happening outside of what? Of the mind. Because that's what they say. I wanted to he was trying to deny everything. Right? And in the course of that denial, he noticed that denial was an action of attack. So it was as if the thinking was happening outside the what? The ego. Right? But remember when we were doing intentionality, we said that what? That intentionality is the directedness or aboutness of what? Of thought. Which means in phenomenology, every thinking has a directedness and it has an aboutness, right? Every thinking has content. So for Husserl, thinking is always intentional because it has content. Whereas for Descartes, thinking is possible without a content. So what we're trying to say is that what? Descartes' idea of thinking, of consciousness, is without content. There's no, for Descartes, consciousness can exist without an object. But for Husserl, no. Every consciousness is what? A consciousness of what? Of something. Right? So for Descartes, whereas for Husserl, consciousness is intentionality itself. Because every consciousness, every thinking has it. Am I making sense? So we say technically that Descartes talk about Descartes we say ego cogito. I think. Descartes will say I think. But for Husserl, he will say I think what? I think something. Which is ego cogitato. Descartes will say, I think, ego cogito, removing the cogitato. But Husserl will say, ego cogito cogitato. I think something. Because once you are thinking, the thinking has a content. It has an object. It has a directedness, an aboutness. There is something every thought is about. That something attached to the thinking makes thinking intentionality in knowledge. But for Husserl, but for Descartes rather, his thinking is an empty kind of thinking. There is no content. So what I've been doing here, I've been throwing random points. I don't know whether you picked all of them, but let's figure whether we can assemble our points. Let's break it up. Let's make it very, very slowly. Now let's just assemble the points. Number one, I said that I said that both of these two philosophers, which of them did first in the history of philosophy? No, Descartes did that. Descartes is almost 16th century. 16th century. So he came first. Now, I said their similarity lies in the fact that both of them emphasize the importance of what? Of the I. The ego. In the role the ego, the I plays in human consciousness. Right? In fact, it's because of this emphasis on the I that Husserl recognizes and appreciates the impact Descartes has on him. But apart from that, every other thing they do has a difference. Right? Has a difference. Now, the first thing you will notice is that what? In terms of their targets, Husserl was in search of what? Certain and precise knowledge. Certainty in knowledge, precision in knowledge. But that was not Husserl's concern. Husserl was what? Was interested in what? We created a method that will help us to do what? To know things as they what? As they are. Right? From your perspective as the first person, I want you to take these things down. Take it down. Did you write it initially? You wrote it? Yes. Did you write it? The way you wrote it, do you remember it? See, I said both of them emphasize the importance of the ego. Okay? The importance of the ego, the I, as the primary factor in human consciousness. As the primary factor, the key concept in consciousness. The I itself, for both of them, is the foundation of knowledge. Right? Good. Now, then we'll still come back to that I. Then the next thing I said is that what? That even though both of them have similar methods, the end of the method, the purpose, the targets differ. Right? For Descartes, the target is to arrive at what? Perfect knowledge. Knowledge that is and science, that is beyond doubt, that cannot be refuted. And to achieve this, he followed his philosophy on scientific method, induction, deduction, logic, stage to stage, moving from one point, one chain of cause to another chain to several chains of causes. Right? So, but for the other man, he is not targeting precise knowledge or certain knowledge. He just wants to develop a method which he calls phenomenology that will help you to meet reality and know the reality, as that reality is being what? Manifesting what? Itself to you. So, Descartes was in search of certain knowledge, a method that will guarantee certain knowledge. This is precise knowledge. This one was in search of a method which he called phenomenology that will help us to know things as they what? As they manifest themselves to our structures of consciousness. Isn't it what we said about phenomenology? That we have made about 2-3 points from there. Now, the next thing I said is that what? That even though both of these scholars emphasize the I, the importance of the I as a factor or as a function of consciousness, that their specific emphasis on the I, how the I operates in consciousness, differ. Right? So I said for Descartes, the I is the first principle of being, deduced thinking. The way he presented the I seems to be a product of consciousness. It is not the stage for consciousness. It is not the horizon. Consciousness doesn't. Descartes presented consciousness as if consciousness takes place outside the I. Do you get my point? So that it is that the I becomes the product of consciousness. Consciousness gives existence to the I. But for Husserl, consciousness itself happens within the I. The I is the stage, is the horizon, is the matrix. It is the first person perspective that you are conscious, but that consciousness takes place and happens inside the ego. It is not outside. Am I making sense? Or what's it? See, for Descartes, the I and the consciousness are what? Separate. And in fact, consciousness, which is thinking, is outside the I. He said he discussed, he presented it as if the consciousness existed outside the I and informed the existence of the I. So there is a separation. He kind of dualized human existence, separated the mind from the body. And the mind, he gave the mind what? Recognition before the body. So the mind as a thinking thing existed outside the body, and from its thinking, it gave existence to the body. Right? But for Husserl, it's not like that. The I and the ego are one. The I and consciousness are one. In fact, that consciousness is a function of the I. Consciousness itself takes place within the I. The I becomes the stage for consciousness. What's this thing here? So this one, consciousness and I, the ego, are what? Dualized. They are separate. They are separate. In fact, consciousness gives birth to the ego. But for Husserl, no. Consciousness is a function of the what? Ego. Consciousness takes place within the ego. The ego is the realm of consciousness. It is the state of existence. Is it clear? How many points are we getting? 4. Then the next difference we pick is that what? Descartes talks about thinking without content or consciousness. Descartes' idea of content, consciousness or thinking has no object. Right? No object. For Descartes, consciousness is without a content. You can be conscious and consciousness will be about nothing. So his idea of his notion of consciousness is not intentional. It's not intentional. There is no aboutness or directedness in his idea of consciousness or thinking. Right? But for Husserl, consciousness is intentional because every consciousness is a consciousness of something. You cannot just be conscious without having something you are conscious about, or be thinking and you don't have something you are thinking about. But for that it's possible to be thinking without having a content. So Descartes' notion of consciousness exists, but Husserl's notion of consciousness is not, because it has the quality of directedness, of aboutness. Consciousness always have content, right? For Husserl. But for Descartes, consciousness has no content. So it is not intentional. So it is only in Descartes, in Husserl, that talk about what? Intentionality. Right? For Descartes, there's nothing like intentionality. Francis, are you following me? Okay. So how many different do you have? How many points do you have? How many points? 4. Okay. 1 is logical. The other one is strictly, of course, philosophy is logic, all of them apply logic, but Descartes' method is more about logic. It's more because of the method, the scientific method of induction he used. So he moved from stage to stage. The hand is inductive. The other one is not inductive. So that's it. In general one, the I is the first principle of being. From the I, other things were produced. For this one, I is not even the first. The I is actually being itself. Everything that is happens within the what? The I as the first person perspective. You get my point? Have you guys done Cartesian philosophy? Descartes? Have you done Descartes rationality? No, yes. Where? What's it? Second year? Under what course? Under what course? About methodic doubts. So, because Descartes philosophy created a lot of problems to scholars. He created the mind-body problem. This thing, now, that problem is the reason why why Husserl defeated from him. Because Descartes made us to believe, or want us to believe, that the mind is capable of existing outside the body as a thinking thing. The mind, you can be in Enugu now, your mind can be at Lagos, active and thinking. That was what he tried to make us understand. Because he said, I think, therefore I am. So he wanted us to believe. He wants to make us believe that when he was thinking, the I was not participating. The thinking was happening, whereas the I was what? Somewhere else. So from the thinking, somehow, you now acknowledge that I is part of you. So the thinking becomes the I somehow. But Husserl is saying what? No. That time, the thinking was happening. It was happening what? Inside the what? Inside the I. That is one. Number two. As the thinking was happening, the thinking has what? Direction. So, you see the difference? So, Descartes' consciousness, one, was separated from the I. Two, it had no what? No content. It's not intentional. But this one is saying is that, what one is saying is that, what? The thinking itself, the consciousness itself, is happening inside the I, and it also has what? Content. Are you seeing the difference? But Descartes separated these three aspects of the activities of man. Separated the consciousness from the ego, then separated the content from consciousness itself. But in Husserl, all these three things are what? Married together as happening within what? An active ego. This is what transcendental reduction is about. Okay. For now, we'll just stop there. Stop. Man. Call him. Stop. Miss Collins, why are you bullying him?
No, the one bullying me.
Come here, please. Let me shut this thing down.